I'm Farhan, transformational trainer, and welcome to Elevate Your Life, a transformational podcast, an invitation to take the journey towards your deepest self. It is my intention to inspire you to connect, move, and meditate. We'll tap in, tune in, and dive in, and together learn and reflect from authentic, real, and transformative conversations. Let's get started.
I'd like to start with sharing some words I wrote way back in 7th of January 2019. This poem is called My Voice. My voice. It wavers. It is shy. It is unsure. It is mine. It comes from deep depths, from the dark crevices where hope seeps in. It comes from the cracks from when I broke apart and was put together anew. It comes from that raw, shiny surface, scrubbed clean from having shed all those layers. My voice. It comes from depths of my being, from my ego, from my soul, from my light. My voice gives me hope. It gives me purpose. What's yours?
That was an excerpt from the book The Unbecoming, a collection of poems by the author and my guest today, Shaill Juneja. Shaill is a poet and storyteller whose debut collection, The Unbecoming, explores what it means to fall apart as a way of coming home to oneself. Born in India, raised across the Middle East, and now rooted in Austin, Texas, she brings a rare global perspective to the themes of belonging, identity, grief, healing, and feminine resilience. Shaill is not just a poet, but a storyteller who holds space for vulnerability and rebellion, often saying, "You never were falling apart, you were becoming." Her voice is meditative, yet unapologetic, poetic, yet grounded, the kind that resonates deeply with listeners who are navigating change, identity shifts, or the quiet unraveling of who they once were. The Unbecoming is her first book, published by Marigold Press. It is a love letter to those in the midst of transformation, the ones who are learning to shed, to burn, and to bloom again. Hi, Shelley. Welcome to my show, Elevate Your Life.
Farhan, thank you so much for having me over.
As I heard you listen to that and as I was reading your introduction, it said everything that you had just said. So there was such confirmation in that as I was introducing you, because I was reading these words, I was like, yeah, she is all these things and more. So first of all, congratulations on the publication of your first book.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's still seeping in and settling in.
Okay, part of the seeping in process is this podcast, I assume. And what I came to learn today and realize is that I'm the first podcast that you're doing. Is that true?
That is true. Very first one. So I'm glad it's not on video so you can't see the little like sweat beads on my forehead.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, I'm going to be publishing this video version. So don't worry about that because I've got some sweet beads, sweat beads as well. Because I got to admit, I felt a little nervous when I learned that and the pressure was on. So I'm feeling a bit nervous and anxious myself. So I share that space with you right now.
Well, how about we acknowledge it? We
Yeah.
have named it that we do feel it, but let the intention be that universe has brought us here
Mhm.
and let it flow why we are here and what's meant to emerge. So we can
Exactly.
just take a deep breath with that nervousness.
Yes, let's take a deep conscious breath now. Inhale and exhale.
Oh,
Ooh, here we go.
yes.
My dear friend, I'm so proud of you for this book.
Mm.
I've read it, and your writing is very deeply personal, vulnerable, and honest. How do you feel about putting this out into the world?
Ooh, um, I feel like a mama who's just given birth to a baby, except that I was pregnant for 7 years. So I am relieved. I am amazed. I'm literally looking at this book in wonderment. Wow, it birthed through me, from me. I'm also a little bit shit scared. What now? What am I to do with it? How am I going to handle it? Um, but mostly there's just such a deep sense of joy and the sense of belonging I feel with this book, with this journey that I have reflected in this book. So it's an amazing feeling.
Oh, I love the idea of the fact that you gave birth to this book with a very long gestation period, but the timing is perfect. Obviously, like everything is, everything has its own divine timing. Now that it's here, do you see it as a teaching tool for yourself? Like, do you go back and reread it? And when you do you read it from the perspective of the author or as a reader? And how is it different?
Oh my God. It's teaching me. It literally is teaching me every day. Every day that I hold the book and I go back and I read the words, I I see them, I hear them, I feel them from a different perspective because I'm a different person now than when I wrote them. A little bit about the birthing process, how I wrote them. Every word in this book was not written me sitting by the fireplace, with a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and thinking, let me eliminate some words. Each one of these words came out of me when I was on the floor, on my knees, really raw and, talking to the universe. To be very honest, my writing process as I was writing the book, and I collected these poems from my journals, my little scraps of paper on my phone. They were scattered everywhere because I've just really never honored my writing. I realized my writing process is not a conscious writing process, meaning I don't think and create and then refine these words. I would be doing something, I would be driving, and I just have this urge that these words have to come out of me. And what I learned was I would pick up my phone and just record it on the audio notes, or I would scribble it down. I'd be in a meeting. Literally, there was one poem, I was in the middle of a presentation, and I just felt like these words had to come out, and I just wrote it down on a journal. So as I go back and touch this book and read this book, I really find myself reading it from the lens of a reader. And what I'm finding is this book is meeting me where I am. And I'm curious to learn, does this book also meet others? And it's my hope where they are. Every time I reread those words, I was like, oh, yes, that is the place I am today. Those words have become my ingrained reality now. And it's fascinating how, when these words were birthed, they were not a conscious thought. I believe that was my higher self talking to me. That, higher self, that voice of wisdom, you can call it the voice of God, whatever language you have it. It was my higher self talking to me. So now when I read it, I rediscover the depth. I rediscover the different facets that are behind this. So my hope is that it meets other people where they are. It's a tool for them. But today, it continues to be a guide and a learning tool for me.
Amazing. And you dedicate this book to your grandfather. Why is that?
Oh, he was my first love. He was a man, I believe, way ahead of his times, a scholar, a freedom fighter, wrote and read many, many languages. And I have this little picture at the beginning of my book where I dedicate the book to him. And that was a picture of me. I think I was 6 years old. And that used to be my favorite time, sitting in the balcony with him and my grandma in Delhi, sort of warm, spring. And he would teach me words. He would tell me a word, and then have me write it and then have me recite that word in like five different languages. So at a very, very early age, he just facilitated that love that was just intrinsic to me, the love of words, the love of language. And I feel he sowed those seeds then. Then I did 5 decades of life, hustle, hustle, do, and completely disconnected from them. And then back in my 50s, I'm picking that thread up again. So yes, it is a homage to him, the man that gave me my first love.
Amazing. Shell, you and I both come from cultures where we don't really share our feelings or talk about our emotions.
Oh my God, we do not.
Yeah, I was afraid that was going to be a bit of a blanket statement, but I knew you could relate at least.
Mhm.
Um,
We don't talk about our feelings, or if we do, they better be within the confines of socially acceptable and appropriate.
yeah,
Let's not talk about the elephants in the room.
right. So, having said that and experienced that, was it hard for you to share your work and publicly?
Oh, terrifying, petrifying. And I still am in some ways when I said it hasn't seeped in. My poetry is the most intimate form of my expression. And, like I shared, these poems came through me, um, many in my deepest, darkest moments. Um, So I've never shared my poetry out there. And 3 years ago, I went through a health scare, and I remember one day just kind of, having a conversation with God. I absolutely talk to myself or God all the time and in multiple languages. And I said, okay, if I come out of this on the next end, because I want to, for me, this can't be all there is to life. Um, I know there is more. I want to come out for my boys, then I'll do one thing that scares me the most. And yes, I beat cancer. And then I'm like, oh crap. Now let's figure out what the thing is going to be. And that thing was sharing my book. So yes, it was very it's very scary to share your intimate feelings, especially in our culture when I'm talking about um part of our culture where we take on conditioned identities. We conform to expected behaviors. I'm a textbook case of good girl syndrome brought up in a South Asian family. Be a good daughter, be a good sister, be a good wife, be a good mother, be a good employee. Everything, chase the perfection, be strong, but not too much, have a voice, but not too loud. Um, Stay within the lines. Don't ruffle the apple cart. Put others' feelings before you. And never ever come bring up the topics that make others uncomfortable. So really mute your own truth. Um, and in a lot of ways, this book, this journey of mine was a rebellion and shedding of that conditioned identity. So yes, when it came out, um, I've received all kinds of reception and feedback, um, often mirroring where people are in their lives and lens, through which they are willing to embrace truth. So yeah, it was very scary.
Well, I'm really glad that you're healthy today and have beat cancer. So I'm grateful to God for blessing you with health.
Thank you.
Yeah, and before we dive into the pages of this book, I want to talk about the
Oh,
cover.
wow.
Okay, so there's a bit of a background here because you and I had a conversation about this before the book came out.
Yes.
You're a very dear friend of mine, and you trusted me to ask me my opinion about whether or not you should do this cover this way. Um, I never told you this, but, or maybe I did, but years ago, I posed for a photographer, a Muslim female
Mhm.
photographer. I was asked if I would do semi-nudes, artistic type photos, not everything showing, and my identity would be concealed. And I agreed. And she had the art exhibit in a gay bar at a time when I wasn't even out. So picture this. You walk into the
Oh
bar,
my
my
God.
body parts are splattered all over the wall. People were coming and looking, and I was in, the bar at the exhibit when it was going on, just like trying to keep a straight face, looking at people wash my body parts. It was so strange and weird. And I'm glad we did it. But, when we did the shoot, I will, add a little bit to the story. It was in a very public park in the morning.
Mhm.
So I was naked in the park and had to watch for the joggers running by. I can't believe I'm sharing this story. I've never gone public with it. But now that you're naked on the cover of this book, I figured I could share my story too. So, why did you decide to do the cover naked? And why did you decide ultimately to publish it with that picture?
I struggled. Interestingly enough, it took me only about 4 days to put together the manuscript of the book. That's just, amazing. And I have to go deep and reflect on it some more. Like it just flowed. I was just in a zone. It all poured out. It literally was chronologically organized. The three sections emerged, everything. And then I sat on the cover for 2 months. I had done a shoot with a dear friend of mine, and it was also very artistic and all clothed. And this was after my cancer. I really wanted to celebrate the feeling of being alive. So I pulled out the best of my wardrobe, and we did a fabulous shoot. And at the very end, she told me her name is Valentina. She said, "Go ahead, take that robe off. We're going to take a picture." And I was like, "Oh no." She goes, "Oh yeah, we are." And I went and I thought about it, and I was like, well, here I am celebrating being alive. So why not? And I went, and this was spontaneous, probably one of just two shots we had. Um, a little bit symbolism behind this. The tattoos you see on my back are all real, and every ink on my body is a chapter of my life. I kind of call it every, story of my life ink at a time. The prayer beads I'm holding in my hand are my grandfather's. The little decorative thing I've braided in my hair, that's a very Punjabi cultural thing. And that belongs to my grandmother had given me from one of her trips to Punjab, which is, where my family comes from when I was maybe 11 or 12. And to me, this cover recognizes um, just all of me bare. There's nothing to cover me. There's nothing to hide anymore. It is raw. It is very bare. And to me, this cover represents the essence of my writings, which I believe are also very raw and bare. So I chose this cover because I felt this represented the essence. I was absolutely mortified. First of all, what my mom is going to say. And, when she saw it, she absolutely had a reaction. It was not in English, it was in Punjabi, and it translates to, oh my God, that's way too much skin. um, there were talks about you can't send it to your family, your aunts and your uncles and your cousins. I mean, this is too scandalous. And I think it was, now I realize it was my rebellion. It was my rebellion. It was kind of the final act of shedding away that good girl image that I had performed to my life leading up to this book. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's deeply meaningful for me. And thank you for giving me the confidence you did, because I was like, oh my God, like, do I do it? This is like the most
Yeah.
insane thing I'm gonna do. And you were like, this is you, and you need to own it in
Yeah.
every bit of it. So yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
And I think that, part of my feedback was this is your story to tell and you need to do it your way. So I'm
Mhm.
glad that you did. And I understand where that came from. Look, I come from a family where the first time I wanted to wear a tank top, we had to have a family meeting. And the rule was that because I was going to go away to Mexico, that I could wear the tank top there, but not in my hometown. That was the rule. And then eventually then it was okay to show my shoulders as long as my grandmother didn't see them. And then the first time I did a photo shoot for a professional fitness magazine and it was going to be published in Australia and I did it with shirtless, like we had to talk about that and I had to have like a conversation about that. And then you go and just publish the cover of a book and you're naked. And I'm like, yeah, somebody who gets me, like in terms of the rebellion
Oh,
aspect,
Farhan, it's been such a long journey to get to that. I was
right?
19 studying
Yeah,
here in US,
yeah,
and the first time I wanted to wear shorts in the heat of New Jersey,
right.
I actually had called my parents and taken permission from my mom.
Yeah,
And I'll tell you, even to this day, she recites that incident with such pride. She was such a good girl. She actually asked permission to wear shorts, right?
right. Yeah.
So I so get the whole family meeting to wear a tank top.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. And most people wouldn't understand that, but if you come from our culture and
Mhm.
the idea of respect for our elders and the good
Yes.
boy, good girl sort of image, and honoring their our love for them as well.
Hmm.
It was not easy for me, like much like you, to do that cover, but I worked through it and I did, and I'm so proud that I did, and I'm so proud that you did too. And
Hmm.
everything in these pages, and of course, the very raw cover is reflective of everything that you've written about. But my next question is like, why did you choose to document your story in the form of poetry as opposed to like a biography?
Um, when I started writing the manuscript, I thought why I started was I one day after I became empty nester and had a day of pause, I realized I'm different. I'm present differently in my body. I'm present differently in this moment now. And I paused and I reflected back on my journey of the last 7 to 8 years. Um, and then as I was kind of collecting these poems from every nook and corner of my drawers and my books and my journals, what I realized was I actually never even wrote the book, in first person format because this was a dialogue between me and my higher self. So I made an intentional choice to leave it in its original form and let it be just an anthology of poems and some little short essays and writings in the middle. Um, with the hope that it's almost like an invitation for others to connect with it, where they are, and maybe it sparks contemplation, evaluation in them. So, in the end, I'm very pleased the way it came out because it's not about me. It's not about Shelley's journey of self-reckoning and falling apart and finding herself and finding her truth. Um, as I am talking about the book in various book tours and having conversations with people, what I'm finding is it is this is a journey that a lot of people identify with. They might not walk in my shoes. Nobody has, but the journey of self-reckoning is just very messy and painful at times. And so I chose to let the poems be, and I let them be in not in the first person. I let them be without any. I was very intentional that this book is not a prescription and a formula or a checklist or a framework of how to come to your truth, but maybe just an invitation to mm, pause and self-reflect and acknowledge where you are.
You divided the book into three sections: musing, the
Mhm.
unbecoming, and coming home. Why did you break it down into these three sections? And can you briefly describe how each one like what each one represents in your life?
Um, Musings. I wanted to kind of capture essence of that early stage where I can speak about me right now. Life is going well. I'm living the success checklist, right? Great job, marriage, two beautiful kids, big house, socially have, good community behind me. Um, God, I had the bags and the boots and the dresses. Like I'm doing it all. And then there came a phase where you suddenly feel like you're living it all externally, but there is just this inner restlessness that comes up that you can't quite put your finger on why, but it's there and it keeps growing louder and louder and louder within you. And that's my phase of musings. When I was when I started contemplating, when I started going, do we really need limelight? Or are we just enough with the radiance we have within? When I judge somebody, who am I really judging? Am I judging somebody else or am I really judging something that's unresolved within me? Start my beginning of sort of being a more conscious living. So I call that musings. And then as I grew in that journey of contemplation, I realized that my inner voice, those musings were so loud that no longer I could unhear it. No longer could I compartmentalize it and park it away and go live my very productive, very successful, externally bound life. And that's where my second phase started, which is unraveling. I started to shift. I started to shed. Frankly, I started to really fall apart because every ounce of my identity, every aspect of my identity that I had built on that paradigm of my old conditioned beliefs and identities I was wearing starting to fall apart. I started to question it. I no longer, no matter how hard I try, and I really pride myself for my grit and my endurance and my willpower, I couldn't will my way through keeping my, can I say it, shit together?
You
I
can. That's
just
right.
couldn't. And so unraveling. And that was a very messy, very painful phase where not only I was falling apart. I was shedding. My relationships shifted. My friendships shifted because now I'm not showing up from that old place and not everything remained. I lost many friendships. I ended my marriage. I changed careers. Um, I changed my relationship with things that I collect, my vanity. I still nurture my vanity, but I have shifted the relationship a little bit. But that's the phase of unraveling. And when I was going through unraveling, it always felt like it's a deep, dark tunnel. And maybe I'm just never going to come out at the other end. What have I done to myself? I've just kind of completely messed up a perfectly put together life. But then you do come out on the other end of this dark tunnel. There is light, and for everybody. And when you do, you come home. And that's the very last part, coming home when you have shed all those layers and you see your unique, authentic truth. And you step into that. And that for me is the third section, coming home.
Hmm. And you describe that well in your poem on page 43, which I'm going to get you to read for us right now, please.
Okay.
This is a poem
All
that I
right.
read multiple times, and I just
Mm,
kept coming back to this and several other ones. But because of what you just said right now, I think this is a perfect time for you to read this.
okay. This one is titled Coming Home. And it says, in the throes of falling apart, in the depth of my old self, I stubbornly and at times desperately held on. I held on to the belief that I will birth anew. And I did. I came home to me.
Thank you for
So
sharing
I
that.
still get goosebumps reading it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, for you, I mean, like we could talk about this poem for the whole podcast, but can you describe what home feels like for you? How would you define home?
Oh,
How do you know
home.
when you're home?
I'm home when my breath really flows. I'm home when I just am so present in my body. Like I feel my body. I'm present in my body. I'm present in my breath. I'm home when, even though I might be doing my type A 10 tasks at a time, I'm not performing. I'm not that performer anymore. I have become the one who writes and owns the script that is being performed. So I have shifted and become an observer of my external life many a times. It's not a constant state of being. You ebb and flow through it. I'm home when I know I'm showing up in that moment from my authentic truth, a truth that's mine, the truth that might only be the only voice in the room that maybe not everybody recognizes. And this was big for me. Not everybody agrees to invalidate because, my God, my entire life was based on validation and conformance. And it becomes okay. It's just so liberating. It's freeing. And I'll say, Farhan, I thought now that I've come home, I got it, girl. You're good. You're cool. Now it's going to be a breeze. What I realize is when you come home, you start the journey all over again. So you revisit some of your old patterns and old beliefs over and over again, but it's not repeat. It's coming back to remembrance. Because every time you visit that again, you're now a little bit different person. You've evolved, you have a different lens. So coming home is not only arriving to your inner truth, but beginning the next journey of living and being alive from the place of your truth rather than being in a performative state that I led the first 5 decades of my life in.
I
Does
think
that
what
make
I'm,
sense?
yeah, no, I totally can relate. And for me, what I'm hearing you say, which has been my own personal journey as well, is that home is not a destination. It is a journey,
Hmm.
an ongoing journey, but a state of being. It is your
Hmm.
state of being,
Yes.
which you grow
Yeah.
into with your experiences, the things that you unshed, the things that you evolve to. And what brought me to this understanding is after mom's transitioning.
Hmm.
When she transitioned, I felt displaced by the word home. I became homeless because I identified her as my home. And I didn't realize that till after she transitioned because every time I would go away for work, as you know, I traveled quite a lot and lived in India and I was a Reebok master trainer. But every time I would go away and I would call, she would say, "When are you coming home?" Every time, no matter how many
Oh,
times I called. There was only two things she asked me that she was concerned about. When are you coming home and did you eat? Those were the two things
oh, oh,
that she
moms.
would ask, right? And so I realized that every time I came home, I was coming home to her. But after she transitioned, where was home? And grief unraveled me to the core as I was left with the space of emptiness and not knowing where home was. And I was evicted from the space that I shared with her in the last 5 years of her life, and quite unexpectedly. And I had to find a new place to live. And everyone kept saying, "Oh, when you walk into that place, you'll know it will feel like home and you will know that's the place where you're meant to live." Well, I saw, gosh, I don't know how many places and nothing felt like home to me, nothing. And then I finally picked the last place that I saw on the last weekend where I had literally 2 weeks left before I had to move. And it ended up being home, which you, by the way, which very graciously had the chance to come and visit. Thank you again for visiting me not too long ago. But this was the last place that I saw. And even when I walked in, it didn't feel like home. And then last October 2024, I was in a walking meditation at Dr. Joe Dispenza's retreat in Orlando. And all of a sudden during the meditation, my heart blew open and I was brought to tears and I was like, I'm home. And it was in that moment that I realized like home wasn't a physical place, it was me. Anywhere that I am, wherever I am, no matter what is happening in my life, that is my home. And my practice has been, much like yours, is to nurture my home, my inner being,
yes.
right? And you've
Yes.
done it through your poetry, through your words, and I definitely do that through writing, but also meditation and my thoughts and the way that I treat myself internally, because that is the constant home that I will have with me from the time that I'm born to the time that I transition as well. So I do
That is
relate.
so profound. That
Yeah,
is so profound. I think you nailed it. I had a home. I chased a home, which was my beautiful 5 bedroom house that I built from the scratch. Um, my home was my marriage that was going to last forever. My home was my family who depended on me, who needed me. My home was I'm a successful C-suite executive, top of my game. My home was all these identities. And boy, but much like you, kind of when I lost or or shed all of that, that's the unraveling where you're like, who am I? Where do I belong? What am I doing even? And am I insane? Is this even something I should be doing? This is so not smart or right thing to do. But I did. And you're right. When you let go of all that external that we call home, that we identify ourselves with, that's the bareness, the nakedness. You come and see your inner truth, your light, your home. And you use the word, it's the state of being. And I think there are many poems in here that talk about I hustled, I hustled to become better, nicer, successful, even spiritual. It was all a hustle, a chase for me. And in the end, I realized the answer wasn't this big, thunderous, glamorous Bollywood style revelation. The answer was actually, it's not about becoming. The whole chase leads you to the end, that the answer is just to be. Can you just be all of who you are? Your lights, your shadows, your perfections, your imperfections, and just embrace it. And like you said, nurture it. It's a journey. And you're right. That's what home is. It's a state of being within
Mhm.
you. And I've been following what you've been sharing about your experiences, the retreat with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and it's got me so intrigued. Definitely, that's something I'm going to go down the path and definitely experience more.
Happy to talk to you about that. And yes, and I would add to the state of being is without the titles, without the roles and all the things,
Yes,
without your education and your accomplishments and, all the things that validated your existence. Without all of those things, you're still home.
you're still home. You always had been,
You always
right?
had
The
been.
whole journey was never to go find home.
Hmm.
It was to remember,
To remember.
re-remember that you were home. You always were enough.
Hmm.
You always were glorious. You always were there. I just had to come back and see me for who I truly am.
And you are always worthy.
I was always worthy. I
Always
was
worthy.
always, that is a profound shift in me where
Mhm.
I practice not chasing worthiness and validation externally. It's a practice. I'm not there all the time. I catch
Right.
myself performing over and over again. It's kind of go back, no, you're enough and you're worthy. And then when you show up from that place, I think universe calibrates to that frequency. Your experiences calibrate to that. People who are in your life calibrate to that. Um, and it's just an amazing feeling to be.
Mhm. And some people may uncalibrate with that and you may lose them, and
Yes,
that's part of the process.
yes.
I want to turn to page 6. I want to go back in the book and I would love for you to recite this poem titled Mirror, Mirror. Is that
Oh,
me?
yes. Okay, this is 30th April 2012. So when
We're
I
going
say I
back,
was
not
pregnant
just
for
in
a very
pages of the
long
book, but
time.
we're going back. Yeah.
Yes, I was pregnant. I didn't even know I was pregnant. These were the early stages of pregnancy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh,
Okay, that adds another
yeah,
layer because this is another poem I kept
yes.
finding myself coming back to.
Um, Mirror, mirror, is that me? A peek in the old mirror, and we catch a glimpse of our changing reflection. The surge of energy, the moments of doubts, being extremely uncomfortable in this new space of not knowing what that big, grand plan is, but the serenity of putting together several small next steps. When in years and years of working, we start defining ourselves with what we do, It is very uncomfortable to come up with a quick introduction of self, real self. What is that? Well, what that is, time will unfold. And I am getting okay not knowing. For now, I look forward to 10 weeks of travel, exploration, photography, journaling, and enjoying kids and family. Sometimes we have to step away from life as we know it to start living again. As she hugged me, she endearingly said, "Ugh, you even smell happy." In that moment, I saw the longing of old me. Mirror, mirror, was that me?
I love this.
Mhm.
Shell, when you look in the mirror today, who do you see now versus who you saw in 2012?
I see now a woman who is kind and compassionate to her humanity. I see now a woman who is learning to really fiercely love on her shadows as she has chased and glorified her lights. I see a woman who has taken herself down from a moral and external identity defined pedestal and is more humble to say, okay, I surrender to this journey. I see a woman who is learning and teaching herself to be okay with not knowing it all, not having all that shit figured out. And someone who was a type A with color coded spreadsheets and 5 year plans of life to learn to live moment at a time and tell herself wherever I will be next, I will be as worthy and as enough and as okay as I am right now. So I see a woman who has come home, but who has also just opened the doors of her heart wide open, inviting um, the universe and inviting growth, but this time stepping into it consciously and embracing it versus stumbling my way through it, with resistance and anger and tears and, laughter. This time I'm like, oh my God, this is why I'm here. This is my purpose to come back home to me, to re-remember me. And if my words are the vessel for somebody else to spark self reflection or give hope, then yeah, that's a new pedestal that I'm totally willing to take. But I see a woman who's learning to be enough in all that she is.
Sounds like you've changed a lot since you've written this book.
I have. I have, and I continue to. And I
How is it?
continue
Yeah,
to
I
every
want
day.
to ask you this. How has it changed you as a mother?
Oh, I think there are two things that changed. One was my relationship with myself that I just talked about. And then the biggest change was me, mom to my two beautiful boys. I some of my poems go all back at 2012, and that's the one corporate C-suite job, join a healthcare company, typical type A Shelley. In 10 years, I'm going to be a CIO. I get to the point, I have, I'm given that offer. And next day I go and I turn in my termination. Um, because in parallel, I was coming to that realization, what am I chasing? That was also the year. So I quit and I took 6 months off. I traveled to Himalayas. I traveled with my boys to India, met family. I was also blessed. I came across a book called Conscious Parenting. And that combined with my own inner journey that was happening, I realized um, I was following that old path of I have to raise these two children. I must tell them what's right from wrong. I must help them see their potential. I must help lay their path. I must fix where they stumble. I must protect them, from stumbling. To, oh my God, the whole gift of motherhood is that I work on my inner landscape and I show up as a human, flawed, loving, and compassionate. And maybe through that, give them permission to embrace their humanity and not repeat the cycle I was in. So I made a very conscious and a very profound shift from being a South Asian Punjabi tiger mom to what my kids call it now, hippie heart mom. um, I started seeing them not as my responsibility, my project, my purpose, but companions and teachers in my own journey. And I now celebrate their journey, their falling, their stumbling, and then their gloriously unique selves, that they express. And God, they're my biggest teachers. And that shifted our relationship, and that also, as they have become young adults or adults, we now, I like to say, share this relationship where we're mirrors to each other and we're each other's biggest cheerleaders and even confidants at time. And that has been the biggest gift and biggest joy out of this journey for me.
What were their thoughts on the book and the cover and everything else in there?
Oh, they loved it. My older son, he goes, "Oh, mom, absolutely, you got to go for this." He's 21, he's
Yeah.
good. My younger one, yeah, bro, it's cool. You should go for it. They're both very proud, very supportive. My older one, he's like, I want a personalized copy. And then his boyfriend was so sweet. He's like, oh, Mr. Asia, I'd like to order a copy. And we talked about it. My younger one took the book. He's 6'2" football jockey, a 19-year-old. And he goes, love you, mom. Love you, bro. I bet this book is the best, but I don't do words. I bet it's too mushy. But I also know this book is on his table side.
He may show you how he feels in other ways, it sounds like, but
He does. He
yeah.
absolutely does. And, it just goes back to that thing, kind of step away from how expressions of love even should be, how expressions of adoration or respect should be. Um, it really, I mean, there's no one way.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
I think one of my core truths that I hang on to is if any feeling, judgment or appreciation or whatever, if it feels absolute, it cannot be the truth.
Mhm.
For truth always lies in the heart of paradox. So whenever I feel, oh, this should not be, this is wrong, it must be this way, I was like, whoa, you're not aligned with truth here. You
Mhm.
have to accept the gray and the spectrum in which the truth exists for
Mhm.
each one of us.
Right. I love that. I'm always going to remember that. Thank you for sharing that. Um, I don't know if I'd share this with you, but I was once a background performer on the show Suits.
Oh,
And yeah, yeah. So I was on season 4 and 5, and I'm not saying this to show off or anything, but there's relevance to what we're talking about here, and that is that I did some scenes with Meghan Markle, and
mhm.
at the time I had no idea that she was dating Prince Harry. Of course, it was like under wraps, but it was around the same time, and going back and reading about their story, it was like, oh my God, that's when I was working with her. And then the next thing I know, my mom and I are watching the royal wedding and she's marrying Prince Harry. And I took a couple of things away from that. And the first is you never know when the person you're sitting with is one day going to be a duchess,
Oh
right?
my God.
Right? I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I have pictures sitting with her and I thought, oh my God, like she just became a duchess and married Prince Harry. And I thought, it just goes to show you don't know what potential is possible
Mm,
for your life, right? You just don't know what can happen to a person. And that includes yourself,
Oh my.
right? You
Thank
just don't
you.
know.
Yeah.
And so I guess my question for you is that what would it mean if this book became as big as it could be? Like, what would that mean for you?
Wow.
And I also honor the fact
Uh,
that I'm interviewing possibly one of the greatest
oh
authors of
my
our
God.
time. You know, it's just the potential is here, and it's already done in the quantum. It's just a matter of, if it align when it not if, but when it all aligns. But I guess I don't take things for granted anymore as far as who I
Mm,
meet and what that person's potential is, nor do I judge it as, oh, you're just this or
mm.
you're just that. And even within myself, I don't know what the future potentially could hold for me. And so, as I was reading this book and knowing that it was your first and everything that you've put into it and knowing you personally, I was like, I was reflecting back on my time at Suits and I thought, wow, like Megan became a duchess and she became who she was. And what what's the potential of this book? It could be many big things. So what would that mean for you if this book that you birthed turned into something so massive and so big, whatever that, is?
Oh wow. You asked me this question, I think it was 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago, and immediately my entire body tightened up and I had this resistance. No, 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 no. I'm not here to become the next self-proclaimed life coach, spiritual guru or a big poet. I had to sit with that. That was such a visceral reaction that came in me. I'm so private in many ways. This is such a private thing. And um, like I said, it's still seeping in. I'm stepping into and owning that this book came from me. So own it. But if I go layer deeper, I think I recognize I still got work to do in accepting this could be big. You know, a layer deeper, accepting my brightest, highest expression and how vast that could be. And I don't mean that in terms of commercial success, like really embracing that, my safe zone is still, oh, I'm here, I'm good, got sane kids, I'm standing on my feet. I published a book. A couple of people I know liked it. I'm okay. But to put myself out there to say, if I really put this book out there and if really a lot of people resonate with it, whichever way they do, and if I really open myself up to that, how do I feel? Oh my, it's scary. But since you asked me that question, and thank you for being that vessel, I am working on opening myself up to that. That was a door that was still shut inside me. So I'm
Hmm.
I'm cracking it open to say, here I talk about be the highest expression of you and everything. All right, girl. Well then, walk the
Walk your
talk.
talk. Yes. Well,
Walk the talk.
you know, in preparation for this, I thought about that conversation, and what came to my mind is a quote by Marianne Williamson in her book, A Return to Love.
Mm.
Do you know it? Our Deepest
Yeah,
Fear?
I love her. I
Okay.
absolutely adore her.
Okay. I think this is a good moment to share this quote, and it's so powerful. And I think anyone who's listening to this may benefit from it as well as you, my dear friend. And she says in the book, A Return to Love, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest
Mm.
fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. You were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
Oh my God, that gives me tears and goosebumps.
I think we all need to
Yeah,
read this every day
yeah,
and just
I
remind us,
do.
you know, our
Will you
being
email
small
that to me?
does
I'm
not
gonna
serve
put
us.
it on my wall. We're afraid of our light.
We are afraid of our light.
Yeah. And we
Yeah.
build stories around it to escape it. And yeah, Farhan, that's my journey now after coming home.
Mhm.
Is to really embrace my glorious, unlimited, fabulous light
That you are,
unapologetically.
yeah, unapologetically worthy of living,
Hmm.
right? My dear friend, we are entering 2026. It's kind of coming in with a bit of a bang. We're both here trying to stay warm from potential weather. Like it's super cold here in Toronto. It's like I want to say in Fahrenheit it's minus 13. And I
Oh my
know,
goodness.
I'm not going anywhere today. I've got my coffee, I've got this conversation to keep me warm that will stay with me throughout the day and this weekend. Having said that, what are you bringing into 2026 and what are you leaving behind? Did you make any resolutions?
I did not make a resolution. I made a declaration that I shall not make new resolutions for newer, better me. I am going to take my current self that is in 2025 into 2026 and honor it and love on it so more, um, and grow deeper in it. I am working on the enoughness part in me. So, yeah, that was my journal, writing the night of New Year's was like, no more hustle to be better, more, you know. I'm just going to honor. I'm so blessed to be where I am. And I love very fiercely. I'm a Punjabi. Everything is big and fierce and extra. And I'm gonna turn all that extraness to Shelley. And I'm gonna learn to love me wherever I am, in whatever the moment might be, to just love on me. That's my intention for 2026.
That's amazing. Do you have a word? Because a lot of people sometimes have a word for the year and
Embrace.
mm, my
Embrace is my
embrace.
word.
I love it. Mine is unmasking.
Mm,
I'm exhausted by putting on
mm.
masks. And I think as queer people, we can all relate, but as you don't have to be queer, but many of us have put on masks of all sorts,
Yes,
right? For whatever
yes.
reason. And I'm just tired of wearing mine. So I'm going to be more truth revealing, more authentic, and just allow myself to be who I
Oh, the world needs more of Farhan.
am. Thank you
You
so
can't
much.
mask yourself. The world needs more of Farhan. World needs more of all of us stepping into really just embracing our true selves and stop living by this, predefined labels and boxes and lanes. Um, and you're so right, Farhan. The work you do through this podcast, um, I think you really elevate that awareness, and then yes, you can call it you're raising the consciousness, collective consciousness. All of that starts with that seed of awareness.
Mm. Thank you
And
so much.
yes, the world needs more of you. So yes, my friend, unmask, bring it on,
Bring
all
it
of
on.
it.
My dear friend, we could talk for hours, but I would like to wrap up with one more poem on page 130. Would you please do us the
Oh,
honor of sharing
oh,
your work?
it is my absolute pleasure because this is almost like my mantra, and it is on a piece of paper next to my desk. It was written on Friday, 2021, October 2022, and it's titled, I am alive. I am alive. I have not just lived, I am alive. I have mattered. I have created a legacy for me, for those before me, and ones that come after me. One that unabashedly owns the living, the loving, the losing, and then the becoming. One that celebrates the possibilities, the chasing, the falling, and the making. One that hums her music even in the chaos of their noise. One that knows to find herself even in the mayhem of being everyone else. I am limitless in my potential and my pursuit. I have basked in the light of those that I salute. I have ignited that fire in those that I include. I have known love, been in love, consumed by love, and then become love. I have flowed gloriously in my contradictions and my imperfectly perfect repetitions. I have embraced my shadows and become my light. I have just not lived. I am alive.
The book is called The Unbecoming. The author is Shaill Juneja, sorry.
Yes.
I want to thank you so much for this body of work. I want to thank you for this conversation. I also want to thank you for your friendship, for your time, your energy, your beautiful spirit. The world needs just as much of me as it does of you. So please continue to be you in all that you are in your unbecoming. I look forward to more expressions of art for you. I think there's more to come. I know there's more to come.
Yeah.
And I will have a link in the description so that people can get their copy. Thank you so much, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much. Have a blessed one.
You too. I'm Farhan. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's episode of Elevate Your Life, a transformational podcast. I hope today's conversation has elevated you in some way and inspired you to connect, move, and meditate. I'd really appreciate your support by following and rating this podcast. Come back soon and join me for another transformative conversation.